Yeah, so I had the opportunity to have Mackey of Ironside Ranch and Chris Taylor of Taylor Welding and Financial Fitness. It's got two channels. I'm going to link to both these channels. I encourage you guys to check them out. They've got a lot of good content and enjoy the conversation. There are two parts to this. First part, short video right here, a little less than 25 minutes. And then we've got a longer part two of this. Watch for both of them. I'm going to post both of them relatively back to back. And then we'll see you in the comments. Enjoy. All right, guys. So I'm back. I've got Chris with Financial Fitness in the bottom, and I've got Mackey Barr with Ironside Ranch.
Hey.
And that is an amazing name, by the way. Ironside. Like, I freaking love it. Isn't that a ship?
Yeah, so it was actually the unit that I deployed to Afghanistan with. They were the old Ironsides, and so it just kind of stuck with us. And so that's what we I don't know. I think my kids had actually ended up picking it because they liked it, and they have a little patch that says Old Ironsides on it.
I like it too. So, so this evening is about what should a young man do for 22. So if you are a young guy and it's 2022, from these guys, what is your advice? So personally, I'm 32. I'm about to be 33. Graduated high school in 2007. Graduated college in 2011. Did some stuff in between, have some ideas on what I don't have any regrets, but have some ideas on being a younger guy. And so I'm going to ask you guys, what are you doing right now? What's your perspective? Who wants to go?
Well, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Mac. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, I guess the first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to say change your perspective, because we talked a little bit last night, Trav, and I realized that you probably had this perspective a lot earlier in life than I did, but I had the perspective of going in and getting that 9-to-5 job or whatever it is, that salaried position, and that was your way to success. I want to say change your perspective. If you're in the moment, you can change your perspective and realize that you're going to be better off, you're going to make more money, and you're going to be happier if you focus on something that allows you to be self-employed or to provide and kind of make your own way in life. And that's a whole different perspective, because you have to, we always talk financially about getting out of the system through these things like, gold, silver, and crypto, but getting out of this system, this education system, this daily grind system. And I'm not saying don't work. You should be out there crushing it to, 12, 15 hours a day, but you should be doing something that you love doing, and doing it in a way that you're your own boss, and at least setting that up.
So mentality for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I mean, for most things in life, the mentality is always the key. Your attitude is what defines your success. But that's my biggest thing with my kids is don't fall into this system that you have to graduate high school and then go to college and get whatever stupid degree. My wife and I both have worthless degrees, and we don't use them. And my kids would be better off going and getting a trade and then going to college. Or if you want to go to college and get something like we just talked about, like if you have to go to medical school, then obviously there's exceptions, but get out of this stupid system that says that you have to do this to be successful. You don't have to, and the numbers show that you don't have to.
Okay, what say you, Chris? Financial Fitness.
I would do what I did when I was 16. I enrolled in welding school. I sucked at regular school, and I was really good at welding. So I went to welding school. I graduated on the honor roll. I went from there to a machine shop, and that was it felt kind of trappy. It's like I knew I was going to dead end at about 50 grand, and they were building a power plant down the road. Well, I can weld. So I went down there and took a test. At 18, maybe 19 by then, I was making $1,000 a week and $40 a day per diem. 20 years ago, that was a lot of money. It's not bad today.
No.
Living at home, and that was it for me. My worst fear was getting a job at some kind of refinery, a day in, day out, mundane, worked there 40 years. I never, ever wanted to do that. I started doing shutdowns, and the more I worked on these shutdowns, the more money they paid me. When I quit doing shutdowns, we were making $32 an hour. I forget how much per diem, and you would work 7/12s. So, man, you could bring $3,000 or $4,000 a week home. It was really good.
Yeah,
it was really good for a young man like me to really do that. So I tell every young person, the only thing I regret is not starting welding sooner and not really learning how to do the pipe and the hard stuff a little bit earlier, because I just kind of did the minimum at the beginning. So that's what I would encourage people to do.
All right. So Mackey, I'm hearing you say that self-employment. I'm hearing you basically say don't have an employee mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing Chris say develop a trade.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that to me, entrepreneurship is always going to be the core and the backbone of our society. And I think that in general, people that decide to go out on that ledge and bet it all on black, I think in general we tend to be happier. I mean, all three of us in some capacity are doing that, and you know, we've realized that over time, you know, it's not these one big decisions that sell it for us. You know, most of us aren't probably going to hit it as big as Elon Musk. But the reality of it is that good decisions over time will create a successful business. And ignore the naysayers, ignore the people that'll tell you, oh, 70% of businesses fail, or whatever stupid statistic that they don't have a clue what they're talking about. You know, they really don't understand how those statistics work. Ignore the naysayers and go out and do it, and find what you're passionate about and what you want to be doing, and figure out the path there. And you may have to go work for somebody else for a couple of years, and that's okay, but don't make that your dream unless you just happen to love what it is that you're doing. But you know, I think that entrepreneurship fits a lot of young people, and I think that you know, they'll find that purpose, which is what they're driving for. Simon Sinek talks about that all the time, that you know, these younger generations, they're looking for the why in what they're doing, whereas the older generations didn't so much seek the why. They sought the, you know, the how do I get here.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna push back against the why, but go ahead, Chris.
On the entrepreneur thing, that's the beauty of welding, because you can make enough money in a lick. We used to work 3 and 4 months, maybe sometimes a month, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 4, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. You can make a big chunk, and then you can go invest in whatever you wanted to.
Yep.
You know, if you aren't like the average person and spend everything you got at the bar. So that kind of gives you, trades gives you, you can jump in, you can jump out. You're needed. It's at will's company that hire you. You leave at will, you come at will, and you leave at will. You know, there's nobody holds it against you. Well, they say they don't, but they don't like you to drag up on them. But that really gives you some freedom.
Well, if you've got that skill, I mean, I know my welder guy, I'm pretty nice to him. Even when things aren't quite right or the bill's high, I'm pretty nice to him, because there's like 3 guys that I know of that can do what he does.
Yeah.
You know, as far as how good he is, like if I need it to be correct, like to give you an example, there's this guy named Nick from my town that walks across volcanoes and stuff on a tightrope. My welding guy does his gear. So, you know, I'm pretty patient with it, but like, it's just hard to find guys. Even he complains about finding guys that can get in there and grind and do anything. I've even thought about certain times where I was like, man, you know, I should just be interning with this guy and just being on a grinding wheel with him just to learn the trade, you know? So, all right. So trades, self-employment, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a little bit of a spin there. I've got young cousins that are Gen Zs. I've got one that's a junior in high school, one that just became a freshman at Liberty University. He went off to do the university thing. I was recently at his graduation party, so I go there and I'm like, hey man, what's your plans? Oh, I'm gonna go to college, man. And I'm like, Liberty University. I mean, the thing's like, I believe it's like 40, 50 grand a year, right? It's just insane. Well, what are you gonna major in? You know, I mean, this, that. I'm like, I don't know, man. 200 grand, you get yourself a good rental property for 200 grand, you know? Yeah. So I'm just like, dude, you know. And so so his younger brother's really intently listening. Right, because he's just like he kind of idolizes me a little bit, and I'm like, dude, I'd be getting a van, straight up. I'd be getting a van. You got to do the college thing, that's fine. I'd park my van at my buddy's house, whoever's renting the house, this, that, move it around, on campus. But I'd attend classes. Don't get me wrong, I'd definitely attend classes, but I don't think I'm signing up for the $200,000 rodeo at this point. And that's from a guy. I've got 2 degrees, or minor in one, but I've got a degree economics and finance. And so, you know, I knew that kind of going in because I'd read Kiyosaki when I was 7. I couldn't read any books. I absolutely could not read. And my dad ended up meeting Kiyosaki in '96 when he first published his book and did his first like speaking gig. And my dad ended up getting his book, signed book, brought it back for me. He's like, here you go. If you can read this book, I'll pay you $6. And so I just struggled through it. You know,
that is awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
Yeah. He had parenting figured out. But it was like, you know, so I look at it and I go, okay, I've done the self-employment thing. I'm completely unemployable. I've been employed by a billionaire one time. I was employed for like 60 days. It didn't work out well. But I happened to fall into a circle where the guys around me were like, "Hey, Trav, you seen this Bitcoin thing? You know, we got Bitcoin on our phone. We're paying the electric bill with it and stuff." And it was early days. It was like 2011, and I was into that. I was into that libertarian thing. That's why I was there. But when I look back at it, I would say for a young guy, if you can make yourself more mobile and more robust, and then to Chris's point, if you have skills, you can go anywhere. You know, I could have lived in Arlington, Virginia for a minute. I could have went out to Colorado. I could have went down to Mexico. I could have done any of those things, provided I had that skill set. I think to Mackey's point too, building entrepreneurship is a skill set. But the thing is it's definitely not for everyone, because it can suck for a long time. I mean, it can suck for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think there is a large percentage of the population to where they're not going to enjoy it, and I think that that's perfectly okay. So I don't mean to say that it necessarily is for everyone. I guess where I'm going is that I think probably for a large percentage of the people that are going to be listening to that talk like this, some avenue of entrepreneurship is going to be in their I guess ideals. And the thing that when I talk about entrepreneurship, I don't mean necessarily go out, bet it all on black and start a business. And, you know, that's what you should be doing. That's what I did. That doesn't mean that that's for everybody. You can work a 9-to-5 job, work your 40 hours a week, and come and run a part-time 20-hour-a-week side hustle to make extra money, to do something that you're very passionate about. And that also has its avenues of entrepreneurship. And so I think that that's very worthwhile too. I guess what I'm saying is, don't get caught in the daily grind simply because that's what your teachers told you needed to be doing. That's my general problem with the system.
That's fair. That's
Absolutely. A students teach B students how to work for C students.
Yeah.
If you want to think about being an entrepreneur right now, being 18 or 19 years old, you might think about the timing. It might not be a very good time to really start a new business. You know, the best businesses are started during crashes, not at the toppy market like we're at now. So it might be better to like learn a trade or get to learning something that'll feed you. It might be approaching a time where it's important to be able to trade something for food. And if you have a trade, you can trade that for food. And then when we get starting through this thing, that's the better time to be the entrepreneur. I don't know. I'm leery of starting business.
That makes some sense. Skills and doing your own thing. And if you've got your skills, I've got a kid that I coach with or talk with often, and he's a welder, and he's self-employed, but he also does jobs for other companies. And so he's kind of got best of both worlds. Now, he's not building a business in the sense that he's hiring people, building an SOP, strategic operating procedure, filling in, roles and expanding the business. Like, he's not necessarily doing that. So he's a self-employed individual, but he also does take employment roles. And so I think what I'm hearing there is, like, if you're a young guy, building a company is a good way to go. Take into account where the economy sits and what type of trade you're moving into. If it's a trade, it doesn't have to be a trade. I'm going to throw in a little extra there. I think that we live in a time where you can do content and get paid for it, and you can niche in. I mean, if you're into like surfing, and back to the van, and you got a van and a surfboard, very few people are going to be able to literally live on a minimal amount of cash and be able to hit the top 7 beaches in America or whatever. So if you're like, hey, I can do this, I can save $5,000, work in a trade, get into a town and work during the day, and then weekends or afternoons, do my own thing. And you can get to the spot where you can build content. I mean, I'm still in this phase where my content creation is maybe like $1,000 a month business at this point, and I'd like to make it a $10,000 a month business. So I do think that's a possibility. So if you're 18, 25, and you're already out of the house and you're kind of grinding at this point in time, maybe you're doing the college. I guess, you know what? Really everything kind of applies. I think there's 2 categories here. It's either like you're young and you're single and you don't have any commitments. And then you maybe are young and you do have some commitments, but you're still young. Would you guys agree with that at all? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually something my wife and I talk about all the time. I mean, you were hitting bells with me all through that, is that You know, because we've talked about it. If we were back again, when both of us and just single and not together or whatever, like we would have done like the camper route or whatever and gone and made it something that we could do mobile. And even we talked about if we were together without kids, there'd be a large part of us that'd be like, hey, let's just buy like, you know, 25 acres and a small RV and we'll bum around and we'll have a home base that we can come back to with a mailbox. But like, that's all that's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A septic tank to plug into and maybe a water line. But you know, we've talked about that a lot. I think that mobility, you know, there's lots of YouTube channels out there, like, you know, changing lanes and stuff like that, where these people do that. And, you know, it's a kind of a neat lifestyle, but having some freedom and flexibility in whatever lifestyle you choose, I think is going to be, you know, paramount to your success. Even if that's not what you elect to do, have freedom in your decisions, and going out and encumbering yourself with a bunch of debt and, you know, a mortgage or student loans or whatever right at the beginning can really cripple you to have that flexibility later on.
It can. You know, you talk about the camper and the freedom. That's exactly what I did, but I did it out of necessity because we were doing these jobs. Oh, what's up with that? We were doing these welding jobs, and Stacy went with me, and my wife, and we ended up in a camper for 2 years. We were mobile, nimble. We could do anything we wanted to. And that's a really good point. That's an excellent plan B as well. If you're somewhere you're not sure it's going to be okay in the future, a camper is like on time.
Yep. All right. So segueing into that. So you're a young guy. So you're at a mom and dad's house. You're 18. This applies for any guy that's 18 to 30 at this point. Women are going to come into your life. Hopefully they're going to be in your life. This is a big thing because you've got to make some calls here. I remember my dad calling out my cousin. He had moved in, married her. Now they've got kids and things like that, but he'd moved the girlfriend into the apartment, right? My dad was pissed about this. Absolutely pissed about this, right? I remember sitting there going kind of like the spite dad. I was like, man, when I get older, I'm going to do whatever I want. You know, that type of deal. Chris is smiling about this because here's the deal. This can screw you guys over. And you guys might hear this on other channels and things like that. You end up in the wrong situation, and you end up in moving in the wrong girl, and then you start hanging out with the wrong people. You can lose a decade, and you can lose your jump start. So what say you two? I mean, older married guys, but I see guys do this all the time. I mean, I had roommates, you know, and we'd had talks. I had to kick roommates out because all of a sudden the girlfriend moves in, and it's like, I just think that's a bad idea. What do you guys say about it?
Well, I think too many people get caught up in they want their happily ever after, and they watch whatever stupid romance movies on TV or something along those lines. And they get this idea that this notion of being in love and everything is this emotion that they're going to feel, and that you know, they're going to continue to have this, you know, that beginning of the relationship honeymoon phase for the rest of their life. And the reality of it is that love is an action that you exhibit every bit as much as it is a feeling, and that, you know, the relationships, true relationships, they do take some work, and it should be work that's enjoyable. But, you know, my wife and I work hard at our relationship, and we have a great relationship. But people that I guess they get involved in this idea that it should be like a movie, and that's just not reality. And you're setting yourself up for bad expectations if you think that's what it's going to be like. I'm sure y'all's marriage, just like mine, have had their ups and downs, and their bad points and their tough points and their great points. And you know, at the end of the day, my wife and I make an active commitment to love each other and to be with each other.
Yeah, the key is though the wife. I'm talking about for younger guys where it's like, oh, I get the girlfriend, she's gonna move in, and there might be some red flags there. And yo, bro, come on. Like,
whenever there's red flags, you need to slow things down, because those red flags are there for a reason. And I don't know about y'all, I've never dated a girl where a red flag was there that didn't turn out to be like a dire problem later on.
All right, Chris, go for it.
Everybody that's watching, the good gets better and the bad gets worse. That is the truth.
Yeah.
So, and he's right. The wrong one will set you back 10 years. And I know several people that would have been multimillionaires, but they've been married 2 or 3 times. You know, that's a hard thing to come over. And I was laughing earlier. I've had some people tell me marry for money and fall in love later. But look, marriage is a wonderful thing. When it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's awful. It's like the end of the world. But you have to work through that, and I don't know. I wouldn't encourage anybody to run off and get married real quick. Try to hold off as long as you can, but don't try to sleep around. It's really hard. That's a hard.
I think what younger guys need to understand is that their SMV, sexual marketplace value, as a guy is on a different timeline than a woman, period. And it's not popular to say in our culture, and we got a lot of boss bitches and all that type of thing that want to go do their thing. But dude, if you're a dude and you're 22 and you're broke as shit and you have no skills, your sexual marketplace value is pretty freaking low. But as you get to 30 and you get to 32, you're not going to peak until you're like your mid 30s. It's not the same thing for women. And our culture gives them a completely different piece of advice. And that's something just to think through as a young guy, where it's like, where are you going to hit your peak and what do you got to focus on at the early part? I think my point is that unless it's like the wife spot and you're trying to fill that, be careful about what you're moving in to your house.
Yeah, be careful falling in love. That's the problem. Everybody falls in love and then they lose their mind. Yeah, God gave you two heads and you only got enough blood to run one of them. You really need to watch out. I'm telling you, I'm being honest. That is the truth. Be careful.
It is true. As a young guy, you do have to watch that. And if at the very least, you control the birth. Remember that. The man is in control of that. You guys have to keep in mind that. I don't think a lot of young guys have that talk with their parents or whatnot about what that is. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys both coming on and giving us advice to wrap it out. We had a self-employment mentality and learning a trade. I think are the two biggest things that come away with it. What about you guys?
I think that's great. I think you can combine the two. Get a trade, it'll feed you, and try to build as many businesses as you can. Buy things that pay you to own them.
That's freaking key.
Yeah, buying assets and developing, I think, good habits as a general rule for you as an individual. Develop those habits, like we've all talked about before this, things like working out every day. Develop those habits, even if it's just a 30-minute walk or whatever. Developing good quality habits of reading and taking care of yourself and things like that. Those habits transcend